So this just came out. Andor's massive budget breaks Star Wars record. A new report discloses how much Andor cost. The Hollywood Reporter say the budget was estimated at $250 million. This comparatively makes Andor Season 1 the most expensive Star Wars Disney Plus season ever made. For instance, The Mandalorian's first 8 episodes cost $100 million to produce. The Mandalorian Season 2 and Book of Boba Fett were believed to be the same, but it's worth bearing in mind, Obi-Wan Kenobi was rumored to be slightly higher per episode. But we have to note, one of the reasons Andor was so expensive is it consisted of 12 episodes, not 8, like The Mandalorian, or 6. When you compare it to the Kenobi show, the budget was handled so much better. And for Skeleton Crew, a show coming later this year, they have a reported $136 million in expenditures. That too is huge. Now you can understand why some fans are not happy about this. Many are peeved off Kenobi didn't get the same budget when that was about 2 huge legacy characters, or really 4 of them, but the 2 main ones were Anakin/Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi. But you might argue that's just the nature of the volume. They filmed on location for the Andor show, but even when they used the volume on Kenobi, it didn't match the standards of The Mandalorian, not by a long shot. Say what you will about the way Season 3 turned out, the visuals were spectacular compared to Obi-Wan. The question I've seen going is why didn't they put that money towards their most important show? I mean, sure, The Mandalorian is the flagship series, but Obi-Wan Kenobi was a project anticipated for many years, an in-between point connecting to both George Lucas trilogies. But how do you guys feel about it? Share your thoughts in the comments down below. And so now, my dear friends, today we have a couple of tidbits for The Mandalorian. One of the directors on the 3rd season, Rachel Morrison, has not given too many interviews compared to the likes of Rick Famuyiwa, Dave Filoni or Jon Favreau, but now she's opened up about the future of the show and the character of Djarin, and she also talks about the difficulties not having Pedro Pascal on set, having to direct Brendan Wayne to match up with the emotion of the vocals Pedro Pascal provided. In an interview with Collider, she explains the ways in which Pedro Pascal contributes to the show and how his development across the seasons enriches his relationship with Grogu. Now, Rachel Morrison directed what is arguably the best episode of Season 3, Chapter 18, The Mines of Mandalore, Episode 2 of the 3rd season. Now, while there are some who say that Season 3 in many places took some weird turns, Chapter 18 is generally regarded as one of the best. That was the episode where they go to the mines and Bo-Katan sees the mythosaur, setting the precedent for the rest of the season. Rachel did such a great job with the directing, and one of the things she addresses is Din Djarin not removing his helmet ever again, going back to the ways of the Children of the Watch, and as such, as a director, how do you convey those emotions? How can his body language and the way the lines are conveyed really get across what the creatives are trying to do? And Pedro Pascal's lines, recorded separately because he was not on set, also has to do that. Rachel says she wanted to do something different in her episode, answer that question for herself. Knowing the limitations, she says, quote, "Somehow they're getting emotion through and character despite these challenges. But luckily, Pedro pre-taped. They do a first pass of the script, so they have some sort of sense of what's being said, and the intonation and inflection, and how that all contributes to the experience of working on set, and try to get the right chemistry between the actors." She also mentions that ADR, recording lines later, is a godsend. Now, although Pedro Pascal's been criticized at times for not doing anything but the voice work, his schedule was very busy, but he understands and knows the character, so when he does those lines, you can guarantee they're done well, and he's able to get inside the head of the character. We've seen him use things like pillows and props as he imagines Grogu is there in his arms. He loves the character of Din Djarin, and it means a lot to him. He contributed a lot to the role physically in Season 2, but was quite absent for Season 3, and in the first season back in 2019, he was only on set for 1 or 2 scenes, notably the first time we see his face. But in Season 4, let's wait and see. We don't know what's going on in terms of production. Rick Famuyiwa said they're not sure at this stage. Of course, there are the strikes and the Ahsoka shows first, but I guess the only guy who knows is Jon Favreau. The scripts are written, so maybe now that Mandalore is reunited, Din Djarin might remove his helmet a bit more, kind of like Season 2, but this time not to save Grogu, but more for the sake that the Mandalorians, the Children of the Watch, have become more lenient, and I know there are fans who would love to see more of Din Djarin's face. Some fans theorize that could make the 4th season better than the 3rd. In a couple of weeks' time on June 28th, we're gonna have the behind the scenes gallery for Season 3. That's gonna be awesome. We're gonna see behind the scenes on the creative process, the visual effects, some of the directors, their comments, their words. We're going to get a better idea of their vision for the story, not to mention some fun and silly moments too. But today on social media, some new character stills have been unveiled by the costume designer on the show. We have a new look at some of the more obscure aliens from the 3rd season, and we we start with Vane, the Nikto pirate, who's also confirmed to feature in Skeleton Crew this coming winter. He's holding his sword, he looks awesome, and we also now know he was portrayed by Marty Machulis, and as I say, we're gonna see more of him in the John Watts show. Next up we have the Warthog Pirate. Like a lot of these, this guy is unnamed, and again, he was part of Gorian Shard's group. Next up we have the Snivian Bartender, who was portrayed by Misty Rosas, the same actress who played Kuil, Frog Lady, the Pirate's Coxswain, and Saphir. She has a lot more minor roles, and it was really cool to see a female Snivian, the same species by the way as the two Snaggletooths from the Mos Eisley Cantina, and here we see her very prominently. And with all of these you can appreciate just how much work goes into the makeup, the cosmetics, and next up we have a character who faced a lot of scrutiny, or rather the scene she was in. Shuggoth, who was in love with the Mon Calamari prince, but they couldn't be together. Guns for Hire was a very interesting episode, and the opening scene began with a Quarren ship, and Shuggoth believed they ran into some warlords who need to be paid off, but it was Axe-Woves and the other Mandalorians. They were hired to track her down and take back the Viceroy's son, and this might sound really weird, but the romance stuff aside, so setting aside their love story, I wouldn't mind learning more about Shuggoth going forward. She was performed by Joanna Bennett and voiced by Christine Adams, and by the way, Joanna was the same person who performed the Tusken Warrior in the Book of Boba Fett. So a really awesome new look at some of these characters, some of the more minor characters. Share your thoughts on this in the comments down below. This is going to make a lot of Star Wars fans happy. They just canonized HK-47 from Knights of the Old Republic, and there are lots of fans in this community, the Mandalorian community, the best Star Wars community on the internet, who are a huge fan of this droid. Some official artwork for the upcoming Dark Droid Star Wars comic appears to finally canonize the character. As spotted by some keen-eyed viewers, the official art piece from the comic features the droid design that is eerily similar to the KOTOR character. For the last 20 years since KOTOR's release, there has been a certain type of cult following for HK. The quirky droid travelled the galaxy hunting down Jedi under the control of Revan, and we know they're still trying to do a KOTOR remake, but the assumption is it's still going to be Legends. Do they have more plans to bring characters from the KOTOR games into canon? Or is this one of the only ones? There have been rumours of an Old Republic movie or project in the works for some time, but we don't know if that was converted to the High Republic stuff or what James Mangold's going to do instead of focusing on the Old Republic specifically. It seems as though Disney, Star Wars, Disney, Lucasfilm have plans to focus on different eras they want to prioritise. And if this character is going to be made canon, then he appears much later in the timeline during the original trilogy. And so now, my dear friends, in other Star Wars news, Diego Luna reveals that the concept of an Andor show, a prequel to Rogue One, began as a joke on set. It all started when he told Felicity Jones, who plays Jyn Erso, and Gareth Edwards, one day we should show how these people got here, make a series about us before this film. He says we were discussing it, but we never took it seriously. We had to wait for the film to come out and understand there was room for something like Andor, and Tony Gilroy took note. He had 7 ideas for what Andor could have been. He had many different scripts, different ideas, and it's kind of a miracle it came out the way it did, as good and well written as it was. Now, on the subject of what we call the Rogue One universe, a post has been going around on Star Wars social media asking fans, what characters from Rogue One do you want to see in Andor Season 2, because that is something Tony Gilroy said was going to be the case. And lots of fans have been saying, apart from the obvious ones like Krennic and K2SO, Chirrut, Malbus, what about Jyn Erso? This is very unlikely to happen, not just in-universe in terms of her not being able to meet Andor, but Felicity Jones shutting down the possibility a few weeks ago. Well, now it seems she's going from Rogue One to Formula One. F1 has sanctioned a scripted series that will centre around family drama surrounding the world of the Formula One paddock. She will be a producer, as well as taking up a starring role. Good luck to her, and while Jyn Erso dies in Rogue One, hopefully one day if she decides to return in a prequel show, that'd be amazing. But with that said, my dear friends, share your thoughts on this and everything we spoke about in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you in the next video. May the Force be with you, always.